Thanks, Maddie. Right. Thanks, Maddie. I reckon you've done all the introduction necessary, so I'll just crack straight on. So just quickly, a breakdown of what we'll cover today. So firstly, I'll just take you through what digital PR is and why it's important. Then a quick overview of the 9 steps for any digital PR campaign. And then the most important bit, 3 types of digital PR campaigns with case studies, and each of the is a sort of umbrella for a couple of other kind of versions of that type. So it will all become clear in a bit, but there's multiple case studies. So there's not just 3 case studies, there'll be probably, I think maybe like 8 or something. And then I'll just quickly take you through the tools that we use that you'll need. Most of them are free, so actually you can probably use some of these after the presentation, take a look and see if any apply to you. And then just some questions at the end. Like Maddie said, we will be running through some questions throughout, but just any extra ones at the end as well.
So I'm just going to launch our first poll before we get started, which is, do you understand the term search engine optimization, SEO? It's completely fine if you don't, but it just gives us a better understanding of how technical we can get for the rest of the session. So if you wouldn't mind just completing that, just give it 10 more seconds. Great. So yeah, I think most people have answered the poll, and I'm going to end it and share the results. So most people, or everyone who answered, said yes, so that's great. So we will carry on being more technical. We won't go into a definition of what SEO is or things like that, but we will talk about how digital PR relates to SEO. So Joanna, over to you.
That makes my life a lot easier because I prepared for people to know. So thanks, guys. Thanks for being in the know. Okay, so what is digital PR? When you hear the term PR, you might think of printed newspapers and magazines, advertisements, television, but really what we focus on at Conscious is making law firms more successful online. So our focus is a little bit to do with online PR, which is probably a little bit different to what you might actually initially imagine. But essentially, it's all about getting online coverage for your business. And this could be through guest posting or creating relevant news angles for journalists to share. And that can just help to improve your brand awareness and online presence. And for us, the main way that we do this is by reacting to current trends or news with our clients' expert commentary, or we might create our own stories to encourage coverage from journalists. And the goal is to just help brands become more successful online by enhancing their online identity and their visibility to ultimately boost conversion rates. So really, in a nutshell, it just helps you to stand out amongst your competitors. And as a law firm, I think you'd probably be in the minority if you were doing digital PR. So yeah, that's the definition for you guys.
Great. I'm going to launch our second poll, which is just... There we go. So are you using PR currently? So are you using traditional PR? Are you using digital PR? Are you using a combination of both? Or if you're not using it at all, please click no.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I'll give it 10 more seconds and then share the results so we can see what everyone is using. Great, so hopefully you can see the results now. So we've got 1 for traditional PR and then 5 for a combination of digital PR and traditional PR, which is great to hear. We did have a question beforehand, Joanna, which was somebody saying they're using a PR agency already, but they would love to know what they can be doing more of to help boost their presence. So is digital PR something that can be used to build on and complement traditional PR? Is it a standalone sort of strategy? Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, I think what I would say is that traditional PR just tends to be more kind of like business news a lot of the time. Like that is digital, like online digital PR as well. But it's I think traditional PR focuses on getting you in the local newspapers with business news and, I don't know, kind of promote any promotions in the business, anything like that, and events. But the digital PR side of things is more just crafting your thought leadership. So it's more about putting your experts out there as thought leaders, and just boosting those. So essentially you might be called upon by journalists in future because your name is out there as a thought leader. And we've had it happen before where our clients, we've got coverage for them, and then later down the line they get sort of an email from someone from, yeah, they might get an email from like a journalist or a phone call asking them for their thoughts on a particular subject. So really it's just about creating, that's the kind of opposite side. I think that's where digital PR can come in really handy. So it's really interesting to see that a lot of people already do both. So I feel like this presentation will be good to give you a sense of the creative ways that you can kind of do digital PR.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I mean, if a lot of you are already doing it, I can just quickly run through this, but really the main benefits of digital PR are, firstly, you're getting your brand out there as a thought leader, like I said before, an expert in the field. So that's really great for building a reputable brand image. And then ongoing thought leadership efforts feed into Google's EEAT criteria, and that stands for experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And that's just one of their newest measures of search engine ranking. And it's a criteria which is used to evaluate the quality of web pages to decide where it will show up in the search engines. And the more thought leadership you produce, the more you're able to build that repertoire and appear in the search engines for relevant search terms. And then in some cases, the news outlet may include a link to your website. And a link from a reputable news outlet like that just shows Google that you're an authoritative source, and that boosts your SEO portfolio, and that encourages Google again to rank you higher in the search engine. And also the link acts as a referral tool as well. So if someone in the BBC audience, for example, lands on an article that you're linked in, they'll have that opportunity to head to your website and potentially lead to a conversion. So really, it's just about improving your overall online portfolio when people search for your company name, but also search terms relevant to you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Joanna. Somebody before the session wanted to know how digital PR can sort of increase website traffic, improve SEO, and produce higher conversion rates. So I think this sums it up nicely. But if anyone does have any other questions about how it works and the benefits, please do let us know in the chat. Whilst we're waiting for that, I'm going to launch our third poll. So Joanna's going to go through some stats to do with digital PR and journalists. So if you could just work through the next few questions before we get the answers, and yeah, we'll see how your answers compare to the stats that Joanna has found. I'll just give you 60 seconds to work through that.
It's really a guessing game, I think. So just hit a couple of random ones if necessary.
Yeah. We're not testing you. I'm just going to give you 10 more seconds and then we'll share the results, and Joanna will go through the answers, and maybe you'll be surprised, maybe you won't.
I'm not sure if I can keep the poll results up while I'm changing the slide. I hope I can, because it would be good to compare.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do. Right, I'm going to end the poll there and share the results. So pretty spread out for the first question and the second question and the third question.
So can you guys also, so yeah, this is for the first question, 54% of journalists in the UK say that press releases are still the most trusted source of information. So it's actually really interesting to see how many people thought it was a lower percentage. So really, like over half of journalists see what we do as PRs as a key player in their news coverage. That's really great. Just shows our relevance still. Oh, what's the next one? So 2/5 of British adults access news through daily newspapers, and the most prevalent titles are Daily Mail, Metro, The Sun, and The Mail on Sunday. So I think that this just shows the untapped market that you might be able to reach through digital PR. In my opinion, there is no other way that you're going to get coverage if you don't kind of put yourselves out there and start creating these stories and expert commentaries. So imagine the kind of people that you could be reaching if you sort of tried some of these techniques. The next one.
Yes, that was what percentage of journalists say staffing and limited resources are some of the biggest challenges for them.
Yeah. So 20%. So really, it just shows that digital PRs the value that the digital PRs have to help newspapers run and for news stories to run. I think, yeah, staffing is probably quite a huge issue. I can imagine they're under so much pressure all the time. So if we can provide them with a story just for them to copy and paste, that's our ultimate goal, really. The next one.
So what percentage of journalists say their number one method of finding stories is through press releases?
Yeah, so this is 100%, which no one picked. I was quite surprised by this one as well. So 100% of journalists say their number one method of finding stories is through press releases. So I think that just speaks for itself, really. The next one, 2.
Yeah, so we asked people which 2 of the list we gave them do we think is most important to rank on Google. So,
and I think everyone actually, they were correct. So the 2 most important signals used by Google to effectively rank your website is high quality content and link building. And then finally, again, like this was from 2019, and I couldn't actually find a more recent statistic for this. But I think even so, like it still kind of stands alone that less than 1 in 10 marketers are focusing on digital PR in 2019. So even though this isn't a current stat, I think you would still be in the minority. So yeah, thanks for participating in that, everyone. It's interesting to see, to have our opinions and thoughts actually just contradicted. Right. Did you have a question at this point, Maddie? I feel like I had.
Yeah, so one of the questions we had submitted beforehand was about a link building plan or a backlink plan. That's not the name that I know you and the PR team talk about, but I'm thinking it's to do with link building. So they, wanted to know what the difference was between digital PR and link building, basically. So I thought maybe you could tell us what link building is, if it's part of digital PR, and the benefits and drawbacks of a link building plan or a backlink plan.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure about that terminology, but I'm under the impression that it's basically just a link building strategy, like just actually doing link building as a company. And really, link building is just about getting, like I said before, higher authority websites to link to your website to help boost your SEO portfolio. And really, I think that digital PR is just one method of doing that. Like I said before, I think, there's guest posting, there's broken link building. There are actually quite a lot of ways, that some more technical, others more kind of creative, that you can use to build links. I could probably go on forever talking about the different technical ways to do it, but that's a whole other story, so I won't. But so I just think digital PR is just part of a link building strategy, and that's just the more links you can get in a variety of ways, the better, really.
Brilliant. So today we're focusing on the more creative side, which is digital PR. If anyone's got any questions about the broken link building strategy or link building as a whole, guest posts and things, you could maybe get in touch with Joanna if you have any further questions about that after the session. But yeah, we're going to focus on the creative side of digital PR campaigns today.
And my email will be at the end of this, so you guys can note it down. Oh no, there we go. Right, so how does it all work? The idea is that you need to go to journalists with something useful and newsworthy, and you can't really do that by sending them business news and updates and only that. So if you want to make your mark as a thought leader and to build these relationships with journalists, become someone that they want to turn to for expert commentary, you need to be pushing through the noise and providing a story that people care about. So to do this, you need to jump on current news and trends, or create stories through data. And I will go through all of that later with some case studies. But first, just to give you the context of what goes into a digital PR campaign, these are the steps that we would usually go through. So firstly, you'll need to research and brainstorm your campaign idea. And this can include finding any data sets that you think would be relevant to accompany that. And at this stage, if you can get fee earners involved at that stage, it could be incredibly useful. You can ask them what problems are happening in their world that need fixing, what new laws are we expecting, that they can jump on and comment on, what upcoming events or awareness days are they aware of, are there any current case studies or breaking news stories that we should comment on. So I think their insight can be really useful at that stage. Then you'll need somewhere for the journalist to link to. Fill up a data-led campaign. I think this can be like a report style blog page, but otherwise, if it's a kind of just an expert commentary campaign or something, a relevant service page or just the homepage is a good place to direct them to, and direct them to that in both the press release and the email. Then you'll need to pick out the key elements of the story that you think are the most newsworthy. So your angle, it might have multiple threads to it. For example, you might have a data set that reveals stories for multiple locations, like, for example, like the top 10 places to move to in the UK. So in that case, you can reach out to those 10 locations, or you might have data that refers to multiple industries, and that gives you multiple different angles for those different sectors. And once you have these angles, you'll then need to build a separate contact list for each angle, as well as write a tailored press release and a tailored email as well to those separate contact lists for those angles. Then you should, once you've sent out the initial campaign, you should send a follow-up campaign. I would say 3 days after sending the initial campaign, like give or take. I just wouldn't I wouldn't do it like, hours after or the day after, just leave it a bit. And just to clarify, this isn't just a, hey, did you receive my pitch? This is a whole new angle. So take a look at your data. What other stories can you harness from that data and provide a whole new angle so that it resonates, perhaps the first time it didn't resonate with the journalist, or they were really busy that day. Give them something new. Once you've sent off the campaign and maybe you've got some coverage, you might find that it doesn't include a link to your website, and we would always suggest finding the email of the journalist that wrote the piece and sending them just a polite email to ask them if they would be able to add a link. It doesn't always work, but it's worth a try, because that can be really helpful for SEO. And then finally, in order to keep track of the coverage you're getting, we would advise you report on how many links you got, how many brand mentions you got, and also check Google Analytics to see if the campaign got you any referral traffic or conversions as well. Okay. Now on to the fun bit. So there are 3 main campaign types that we like to use to get coverage, and they are reactive campaigns, expert commentary campaigns, and data-led campaigns. And each type of campaign has various methods to accomplish it. So I'm going to take you through each one now with case studies for each type to show you how they work in practice. Starting with reactive campaigns. So these are when you research current news and trends and you jump on them to provide your own unique spin and add something new to the conversation. They can either be short-term or long-term. And what I mean by short-term is a quick breaking news topic that you want to jump on and provide something new to. So by following the news and responding to relevant journalists with a fresh comment or new information, it's a great way to get topical news coverage fast. And an example of this, when we did this successfully, was for our data breach client last year. We had some success with this by jumping on the Eurocell data breach. And in this case, news broke that there had been a data breach at Eurocell, which was a PVCU manufacturer and distributor in Derbyshire. And our client was already dealing with some clients from the breach. And they were just made aware of some further details surrounding the incident that I don't think anybody else had reported on. So it was essentially just a letter had been issued to employees of the company, basically just explaining the various pieces of data had been breached. I think it was national insurance numbers, date of births. So no one had spoken about these details yet, and also the damage that that might cause for the victim. So we wrote up a landing page with the details, and then we sent out a press release to national press as well as press in the local area, so it was the Derbyshire area, and we sent tailored emails for each angle, so a national angle and a Derbyshire angle, and it basically just detailed the new developments and discussed the potential fallout. So as you can see here, this was the national email. So we said, breaking, cyber attack exposes over 1,000 Eurocell employee details. And the Derbyshire version wasn't much different to that. In fact, I actually think it was just putting the word Derbyshire somewhere in the subject line. So it's really just about making it relevant to that local news site. And then from this, we achieved, they were supposed to gradually appear. There we go. We achieved 16 pieces of coverage, 3 with links and 13 with brand mentions from outlets like Express and Star, Info Security Magazine and Derbyshire Live. So I think that just shows you the value of providing something new to a story that people are already talking about. And if you have that information, it's really great to get in there straight away. And then again, with reactive, I would say there's the long-term side of things. And that's when you jump on a trend that everyone is talking about and then just put your own spin on things. And I think a really good example of this is ChatGPT, which was just like a hugely topical subject for quite a long time. So for this one, I think it first began to take off at the start of this year. So in February, we jumped in on the conversation on behalf of one of our clients. And in this case, actually, the client did a lot of the groundwork themselves. Like we can, majority of the time we do this for the client, but they were really on it. And they produced the research, which consisted of asking ChatGPT some standard legal questions and just assessing the answers. And they wrote this all up in this landing page. And then we covered the findings in a press release and sent them in an email to law and tech journalists in the UK and Ireland, as that was where the client was based. So you can get a sense here of the sort of angle we were going for. Expert says ChatGPT lacks skills necessary to compete with lawyers. And as you can see, we've got a link to the study in the press release. So that just shows you where you can insert that link to hopefully get some SEO benefit. And then, yeah, subject line, expert says ChatGPT cannot rival lawyers. You can see how short and sharp that is, and how to the point. This is the email. I'm pretty sure after this, it just says all the best, Joanna, or something. So you can see how kind of short and sharp it is and how we really do just focus on the key points. And I will actually say the press release, that's not the whole press release. That's just the first part of it. So that the press release was longer, usually about, I'd say maybe 700 words. And when we were sending it to the Irish journalists, we put Irish law firm, Irish expert says. So that just shows you the way that we would tailor it to that local area in this case. And this campaign achieved 12 pieces of coverage, 6 with links from sites including Irish Legal News, Law Society Gazette, Legal Futures, Legal Cheek, and many more.
So Joanna, with those, so you got 12 pieces of coverage, but only 6 had links back to the client's website. For the 6 that didn't, will you then go and contact the journalist again and ask them to link? And have there been any instances where a journalist has just outright said no for whatever reason?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time, we always make a habit of doing that. I would say, I mean, I don't have a percentage, but a lot of the time they don't. Like they will, and they'll just do it and great. But sometimes they might come back to you being like, oh, we pay for ads. So they assume that a link is like an advertorial, and they'll give you their rate sheet. And I think other times they just ignore you. Because I mean, can you imagine like receiving that in your inbox when you're also getting like hundreds and hundreds of other emails? Like you're not going to open that, but you can only try as a PR. So yeah, it doesn't always happen.
Is a brand mention as good as a link back to the website? Does it have its own benefits that, you know, it's still worth doing even if you're not going to get a link back to your website?
Yeah, I would say it's always worth doing. I think, as I say, with the thought leadership side of things, if someone were to type in your company name into Google News, would you show up? And what would you be showing up for? Because a lot of the time, I think I type in the name of somebody and all they've got there is business news. And actually, sometimes like, who cares? Are your clients actually going to find that interesting? I don't think so. Like, unless I think if they type your name into Google and you've got lots of data-led stories and you've been really vocal about like certain topics that are important to that person, whatever it might be, I think that does have a lot of value. So I would say it's not as great. Like we'd love a link because yes, it gives you that SEO benefit, but the brand mentions is also really important for just building that image, that brand image.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
That's all right. Okay, so next we have expert commentary campaigns, and these can be accompanied by a reactive topic. So you can provide an expert commentary on a breaking news story, like we've kind of seen before. So basically a reactive expert commentary could be, you see a story that's relevant to your client and you write up a press release for it, like we did with the Eurocell data breach. But you can also use tools like these ones here to sort of provide that expert commentary. So Helber report it out, quoted, and press plugs there. And there are many more like that, but these ones are free. Actually, press plugs isn't free. They're email notifications you can sign up to, which give you a daily update of requests that journalists have put forward, looking for experts to comment on stories they're currently writing. And then the hashtag journo request on Twitter provides real-time requests from journalists looking for experts. So that's a really useful one to keep an eye on. And a great example of us using journo requests successfully is with the Andrew Tate human trafficking news break. And around that time, around the time that Andrew Tate was arrested for alleged human trafficking, we noticed a request from a reporter who wanted some expert commentary on the lover boy tactic that he allegedly used to lure in the victims. And because one of our clients deals with human trafficking, we felt they'd be the perfect experts to respond. And so we just replied via DM, and the journalist asked us some follow-up questions, and we provided the answers. We sort of wrote some answers up, and then our client checked them, and they were happy with them. And we sent them to the journalist. And this gained 12 pieces of coverage across some really great sites, actually. So we had Yahoo, Business Insider, and MSN. They were just some of them. So that just shows you, that was a really quick campaign that garnered a lot of good results. And then alternatively, rather than jumping on conversations that are already happening, another kind of tail of expert commentary campaigns can be originating from you, the expert. And to do this, you could preempt news and trends, upcoming events or awareness days, or even laws that you know are kind of in the making. So you can just be the first to provide that commentary and start the conversation before anyone else does. So a good example of this is obviously something that happens every year and can always be predicted is the new year. And in the law sector, there are opportunities to have your say on what you can expect within the industry in the coming year. And if you're the first to jump on it, it can give you really great coverage. So we did this successfully at the end of 2022. We obviously knew that property and law journalists might be looking for some sort of like New Year story. So we decided to do a 2023 predictions campaign for our property client. And that just gave them something kind of new, some news to kind of look towards the new year. So firstly, for this, we wrote up a landing page with the expert predictions for the property sector. And the predictions didn't just involve like generic predictions like house pricing and demand, which we did do, but the landing page also had some more niche predictions. So sustainability was one, people moving to the country was another, and this lent itself to, as you can kind of imagine, lots of different angles for lots of different themes. So firstly, we targeted property and law journalists with the generic stories, and the subject lines were like 2023 predictions, property expert predicts buyer trends. But then we were able to also target sustainability journalists with our sustainability angle, which I've got here. This was the press release we sent to the sustainability clients, not clients, journalists. Property expert predicts a growing demand for sustainable housing in 2023. And then we also targeted countryside journalists with a country living angle, which was property expert predicts more people move to the countryside in 2023. So that's the press release and the email that accompanied that. And then for that, we achieved 11 pieces of coverage, 8 with links from sites such as Yahoo Finance, 2 separate Bloomberg pieces, 24 Housing, IFA Magazine, Landlord Zone, Inside Conveyancing. So that's some really good relevant links for the client there. And then finally, this is my favorite one. Anyone will tell you that who works at Conscious, because I bang on about it all the time. So these are data-led campaigns. And they are the most complex ones, and they do take the longest amount of time, but they can often reap the most rewards if you do it kind of cleverly. And this is basically where you find or create a data set, you pick out any key patterns or surprising figures, and then you pitch these to journalists with a suitable angle. And there are 4 types of data sets you can use for this. The first being internal. So this is using internal statistics that you may have from your client database. And I will preface that by saying this shouldn't involve any revealing personal details. I mean, it's a given really, but you just pull out key patterns and it's all anonymous, just pulling out those patterns and trends. Then there's external. So that's using reputable data sets such as the ONS, and finding patterns and shocking stats that might interest journalists. Then we have search-led, and this is when you use search engine data, finding interesting patterns and habits of Google users to create a unique story. And then the last one is make your own. So you can make your own survey or poll to get answers to the exact questions you want. And like I kind of mentioned before, with all of these, if there's a local angle, even better. You can send off a national campaign with like the most shocking stats, and then you can send off a smaller campaign about the local stats with a specific press release and email about those specific stats.
Great. So Joanna, can you tell us how important is it to journalists for press releases to include lots of data and statistics and things like that? Are they more likely to get picked up because it's something a bit more interesting, a bit different, or is it just as likely as, you know, the expert commentary and things like that?
I mean, I always stand by stats. I think even if you can add an original stat into an expert commentary, like the better, because that's a really great subject line. It's really short and sharp. I think generally like expert commentary can stand alone if you have the right story to jump on and the right angle. But if you want to create a conversation, stats are the way to go, in my opinion. Creating a conversation from scratch, I think that's the only way you can do it.
And I suppose once even though it takes a lot of time and work to create the data, once you've got the data, you can create multiple different stories and angles from the same piece of data. Like you said, a more local angle, the most shocking stats and things like that. So it is worth the time. Yeah, definitely. I completely agree. There are so many angles, especially with the survey one as well, because if you make your own survey, you can tailor it and ask questions, multiple questions with the view to then create multiple stories from it. So you can be really clever with that if you just kind of think outside the box. Brilliant. Thank you. That's all right. So I'll take you through those 4 and just show you some examples of where we've used those types of stats for our clients. So starting with internal data. And like I said, this is a really valuable and often untapped resource that many businesses, especially law firms, will have access to. And these can be generated via your website, like through quotes or kind of order forms or whatever, or if you just have like an internal client database. And our client, who is a conveyancing client, they have a really rich database which has details surrounding their conveyancing clients. And again, it's all anonymous. And it basically just gave us insights into the certain demographics and patterns that the client base was showing. And
the campaign that we did with this was a yearly roundup of the year's stats, which we sent to journalists in January of the following year. So, and we did this for 2 years running. So the first year, the stats showed that 71% of their clients were first-time buyers in 2021, and that most property inquiries were from people not looking to live in the property as their main residence. So that's a huge amount of people looking to basically be landlords. And the second year, 68% of clients were first-time buyers, which wasn't really too different. But in this year, the majority of people were intending to use the property as their main residence. So it was really different. Like each year, it was a complete flip of the picture. So these were the landing pages that we wrote up. So both years, we wrote detailed landing pages with the statistical findings and patterns. And we used those patterns to generate various hooks for journalists. And then we wrote these angles into various press releases. We then built appropriate journalist lists to suit these angles, and then we wrote emails up for each angle. So, for example, we built a national list of journalists for the key story, which was just like a roundup of insights. And then we also sent some more thematic angles to more targeted lists, revolving around holiday lets and commercial property. So this here just shows you two. I think this was year one, landlords benefited most from stamp duty holiday, new data reveals. And then year two, 2022 roundup, property expert reveals housing insights from last year. And yeah, we sent this in like January, like I'm pretty sure we sent it mid-January. So it was like, as soon as we had the data, we got this out, and I think it did really well. So the first year it generated 6 pieces of coverage, 3 with links from Landlord Zone, Show House, and a couple of others. And then the second year we achieved 8 pieces of coverage, 6 with links from outlets like Inside Conveyancing and The Negotiator. And actually, if my memory serves me correctly, the woman from The Negotiator was really keen about this. And I think she just said that she always asks law firms specifically to provide that kind of internal data because it's really valuable, but no one does it. So we were kind of like the one people that were doing it. So like I say, this is such an untapped resource that law firms could be making use of.
Joanna, if people want to do something that goes live in January, for example, when should they start, thinking about the press release and collecting the data? Like, should they just start doing that now, or is, waiting till November fine when they've got like nearly a whole year's worth of data?
That's a good question. And I preempted this when we did this. So I was like, right, we're going to prepare for this. So we collated all the data, I think, in like November, because we were sort of like preparing for December to be super busy internally. So I was like, if we can get this done in November, great. So we got all of the data recorded in a spreadsheet and like most of the patterns and everything sorted by that time. And then when it came to December and January, we just inputted the final bits of data, made sure that the patterns were all very clear. And then I think we had already, I don't think we'd written up anything yet. I think as soon as we kind of arrived back in January, we wrote up all the collateral for it. So landing page, press releases, emails, and then we sent it out within, I think, the first week or the second week of people coming back for Christmas. So yeah, you can prep that for sure.
So our clients, they basically just send you a spreadsheet full of information and you figure out the patterns and things like that. And if they wanted to do it themselves, would you recommend maybe starting in sort of like September time if it's the first time they're doing it and they aren't sure what they're going to find and things?
I mean, it depends how proficient you are. In the case with this case, they gave us access to their database and we did it ourselves. So we pulled out the key data, we just had to figure out the data basically and pulled it out. I kind of put it into a spreadsheet myself. So we can do that for you, like that's no problem. But I think if you were to do this yourself, yeah, it depends how proficient you are with Excel and with statistics. So yeah, if you can invest the time into doing that, I would really recommend it.
Cool, good to know, thank you.
That's all right. So yeah, another really effective way to make news using data is through utilizing existing data sets to create stories. And there are loads of data sets. There's the Office for National Statistics, there's the World Health Organization, the Information Commissioner's Office. Honestly, there are so many once you start looking. And the idea is that you take these data sets and you give them a new lease of life. like I said, you just find patterns and create stories from them, because obviously these are publicly available. So you really need to kind of like make them sing, give them a fresh new kind of take. And this is actually one of our most commonly used techniques for achieving coverage. We find it really attracts journalists because it's really reputable data. And I think for this one, rather than showing you just one specific campaign, I thought I'd just list a few that we've done just to show you the extent of data out there and the types of stories that can be generated from it. So firstly, we found the ONS to be extremely useful. It's a massive hub of data and it's being updated literally daily. And one of our most successful campaigns was using the net internal migration data, which showed which counties people living in the UK were moving to. And by analysing the data, we could get a top 10 most popular counties list where people were moving to the most. And that gave us 10 locations to target. So we wrote press releases and emails. We built contact lists for each of those locations. And we had headlines like Devon ranks highest in top 10 UK places to live. And this generated around 30 pieces of coverage from like Devon Live, Hampshire Chronicle, Kent Online. It was just all these local papers. Another data set we used successfully were the family court statistics, which generated some quite alarming figures actually after the new no-fault divorce law came into play. The figures showed that alongside the increase in joint divorces, there were 31% fewer financial applications, which implied to us that divorcing couples were assuming that their finances would be safe during a joint divorce, which is not the case. So using this data, we provided an expert commentary, and then we were able to get some really decent coverage on Business Manchester, Business Cheshire, Law News. And then finally, the Information Commissioner's Office is one we've used successfully. They deal with the UK's GDPR legislation, and they have some really brilliant data sets, which are really comprehensive. So we found a data set from them at the end of last year, which showed some really good figures around the sectors most likely to experience a data breach and the types of data breach that they were facing. And we found that sectors such as health, education, and retail were the most commonly involved in data breaches. So we reached out to outlets in those sectors. And yeah, we targeted press, we wrote press releases for them, sent the campaign out. We sent it out a couple of weeks before National Computer Security Day. So we kind of springboarded that data and accompanied it with an awareness day that was happening in November. And just that gave it that extra boost as well, of relevancy for the news, like at that particular point in time. And that generated 7 pieces of coverage in some kind of like, wait, hang on, sorry, I did actually list it here. So that one generated 7 pieces of coverage on, oh no, I didn't, just various high authority websites. I thought I'd listed them there, but there was quite some good, I think AAT was one, I can't remember what that stands for, aat.org. So rather than like news sites, they were more like businessy kind of, there were some retail news ones and others like that as well, from what I remember.
Joanna, I just have another quick question quickly. If anyone else has any questions, by the way, please do put them in the chat. But these seem like some really good sort of sources of information. Can anyone access them, and are they free to get hold of?
Yeah, they're completely free. There are some, I think, platforms that you can, I think Statista is one where you have to have like, you can sign up for it or something, but ultimately like the ONS is completely free. A lot of these are like publicly available resources. So we're like entitled to have this information. So, and even if you don't have this information, you can put through a freedom of information request to the government as well. We've tried that unsuccessfully, like it's quite a time investment. So if you just want to crack on, like I would just advise, just start with the ONS. It's such a good data source. And there's loads of local stats as well with the ONS. They have like every county will have a stat for something. So that will really be great for local coverage.
Brilliant, thank you.
And then we've got search data campaigns. So these are where you use tools like Ahrefs and Google Trends to find search engine data, and that can inform numerous these are kind of more creative campaigns. And an example of when we'd done this for our conveyancing client was we wanted to see which countries people in the UK most wanted to move to. So we inputted search terms like moving to Spain from UK, and we did that for all 44 European countries, and we put that in Ahrefs, and then we noted down the estimated average search volume over the past 12 months for each country, which revealed the areas most of interest for UK citizens. So I think for here you can see the UK search volume for moving to Spain was 1.6K. So we had that figure for all the locations. And then from that, we wrote up a landing page, which provided us with a top 10 list of countries. And the landing page had some expert commentary on why these countries might be the most popular, like cost of living, house prices, climate, that kind of thing. And it showed that the data showed that Spain was the most popular and the island was the second most popular, which we thought that was quite interesting. So we wrote up a couple of press releases, revealed Spain '1 destination of interest for UK residents to move to. And that just has a brief overview of the data and what it shows us. And we wrote emails as well for the locations, and we built appropriate journalist lists as well. And then that generated 11 pieces of coverage, 8 with links to the client's site from Spanish News Today, Mercia News Today, Property Investor Today. It's quite a few high authority sites there. And then finally, a really effective way to generate coverage is to create brand new data by using a survey company. And the idea with this is that you kind of decide on a topic that you'd like to get some more information on. You write up a list of questions for your chosen demographic. You send it to a survey company who then put your questions out to a large group of people. And you end up with original data that can be used for multiple stories. Like we said before, if you kind of craft it cleverly, you can get multiple different angles. And here's just an example of a few questions that we sent. So yeah, a really great example of when we did this was for our data breach client. And a year into working from home, we wanted to see how this had affected companies' GDPR practices. So we sent out a survey, and like I said, this is just 3 questions from that survey. We sent it out to 2,000 UK office workers, asking them a number of questions about their company's GDPR practices and how things had changed since the transition. So here you can see we asked them, on average, how many data breaches happen at your company each year. And amongst other great pieces of data, it revealed the shocking statistic that 2 in 3 home workers were disposing of sensitive data in their household bins. And on the surface, that might not sound crazy, but actually, when you think about it, if they're binning sensitive documents at home, not shredding them, that might get, that's available for the bin men to see. It's available for anyone to just like pick up and look at. It might get blown away in the wind, you never know. And so for this one, we wrote all of our findings in a landing page and we sent it in an email to journalists. So this was the email: 2 in 3 home workers dump your data in household bins. And after quite a slow start with this one, I will admit, it did get finally picked up by the BBC, and that gained a chain reaction of coverage. And we had around 30 articles, 24 with links. Coverage was like Yahoo, Greater Birmingham Chambers, various kind of tech websites. And I think the great thing about this one was because the landing page was written for SEO, I think if I go back and show you, the title of this page is just Data Breach Statistics 2020. And the landing page was super detailed. It had loads of really great statistics. So yeah, the great thing about that one is that it can just continue to get organic coverage later down the line. Like I think like years later, we were still getting links, because if somebody were to type in Data Breach Statistics 2020 and they were writing something about, working from home statistics, our landing page would appear and they would link to it. So that was really good. But the only downside to this technique is that it will cost you extra money, because the use of a survey company can be quite expensive. It's like a few £1,000s. But like I said, if you do this in a wise kind of way and you really sit down and you brainstorm what you're trying to gain from this, and you think about multiple different angles and stories that you might be able to get from the data, then it's really worthwhile. Oh yeah, BBC, there we go, there's the coverage, and these are the other ones. So yeah, it was quite a good one, quite a lot of authoritative sites there. So yeah, those are our main types of campaigns. And of course you can mix and match. You know, the techniques can be used to create endless campaign ideas. And these aren't even the only ones, the only techniques out there. Like there are some more like crazy creative ones that you can use. But these are just kind of a place to start and what we kind of like to use regularly. And throughout, you might have noticed I've sort of mentioned a few tools and things like that. So I thought I'd just list them here for you. So you will need tools to kind of stay abreast of the news and jump on current news and trends. Then you'll also need tools to track your brand mentions and links, so you know how successful you've been in your campaigns. For search engine data-led campaigns, you can use tools like Ahrefs and Google Trends. For reporting, you can use Google Analytics to see if any PR efforts have increased your traffic or conversions. And then finally, if you're doing this on a large scale like we are, you'll need some sort of journalist database. And we use Roxil, but if you're doing this on a small scale, you can do this manually. You can build your own list, but it's just quite time consuming. So this is what we use.
So yeah. On the topic of journalists, you've mentioned Twitter and Journo Request, is there a specific social media platform that you found to be the best in sort of building those relationships with journalists? Is it Twitter, or have you had any success on Instagram or TikTok or LinkedIn or anything like that?
I would say Twitter. I think a lot of journalists will have like a business account on Twitter and they use it for that, like I said, to send out journal requests and that kind of thing. Whereas I think a lot of the time, like Instagram is quite, and LinkedIn, they're quite like personal accounts. So if you were to message them on there, it would be a bit of like an invasion of privacy. It would be like if your colleague messaged you outside of working hours, like it's kind of like that. And I just think no one wants that. So I would say just stick to Twitter. That's a good place to kind of hear what they're talking about and get in contact with them and see what's happening in their world.
Sure, that makes sense.
Okay, so to end, I do just want to specify, I know that this presentation looks like we're constantly getting coverage and like really good coverage at that. And actually we do have a pretty good success rate, I will say, especially for clients that we do this for consistently. I think the more consistent you can be with this, the better for us, because we get to know you, and the better for just, I think generally you just get to know like the audience that the journalist audience that you're reaching out to as a PR, the more you can do it. But it is somewhat out of our control, depending on the season and the news cycle. As a PR, you can only do your best, and you can't be disheartened if you don't get coverage all the time, because that's just unrealistic. We're never going to guarantee coverage. But I think you can just see from this how you can kind of swing it your way. And if you kind of are quite smart and sensible with the way that you approach the journalist with fresh data and like real stories, you have a lot more opportunity and a lot more chance to do it.
Brilliant, thank you very much. I'm just going to launch our final poll, which is actually, are you interested in implementing digital PR as part of your digital marketing strategy now? But you all pretty much said beforehand that you were using it already. So if you're not using it, are you now? And if you were using it before, do you have so many more great ideas for digital PR campaigns? Because Joanna has filled you with her wisdom, because I know I definitely do. Just give you 10 more seconds to answer that. And then if you have any other questions and you would like to come off mute and ask them, or if you want to put them in the chat and I'll ask Joanna them, that would be great. We'll hang around for a few more minutes. We've finished 4 minutes early, or on time really. So excellent time for you, Joanna. So the poll, share the results. Everyone who answered said yes. So that is excellent news. So hopefully we're going to see lots of interesting news stories coming out. So our next session is going to be with our head of SEO, Jamie Stevens, and it will be on how to get the most out of Google Analytics 4, so the reports and answering any questions or headaches you're having with the platform. So I've just put the link to our webinars page in the chat. So if you do want to sign up for that one, I will also link to it in the follow-up email that we send you, because John has obviously been chatting about how using Google Analytics to see if you get a spike in traffic after doing a PR campaign. So it might be useful to have a look at Google Analytics 4 if you're not already using it and aren't already familiar with it as well. I'm going to stop the recording now. and